Greetings and welcome to ValorTube.com. My name is Paul Lear. I am an original content provider. I'd like to take the time to welcome everyone to ValorTube.com and welcome to This Week in Prophecy. We have some big time developments coming out of the land of Russia. I think we want to keep a very close eye on what's taking place in Russia. We're going to get to the specifics, but before we get there, how does this relate to prophecy? I know this is becoming a broken record, but it has everything to do with Ezekiel 38 and 39. Specifically, and the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog. And I'm going to make the argument Magog is modern-day Russia. Magog, the Magogians, the Greeks called these people the Scythians. And specifically, there's a man who's going to be the leader of Magog. His name is called Gog, according to the Bible. And it says, prophesy against him and declare that this is what the Lord God says. Behold, I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, which is modern-day Turkey, which makes me wonder if at some point Turkey's going to defer to Russian leadership. I would say yes. How that happens, I don't know. I will turn you around and put hooks in your jaws and bring you out with all your army, your horses, your horsemen in full armor, and a great company armed with shields and bucklers, all brandishing their swords. And I'm going to lay this out as a possibility. I don't know this for sure, but man, is this ever compelling. And I will submit and ask the question, are we watching the hooks being put in Gog's jaw, and is Gog being brought out with all of his army from the uttermost parts of the north? So there are two options from the uttermost parts of the north of Israel. Israel's over here, southwest part of the map. North of Israel is Turkey and Moscow. It's one of two options. It's Russia or Turkey. And I'm going to argue it's Russia. Historically, this is what was the Scythian Empire. And if you drop the ancient Scythian Empire on top of a modern day map, well, it's pretty obvious that this would be Russia. Not much of a discussion there when you look at that. Also, historically, this is an article I wrote for Trey Smith at God in a Nutshell, Who is Magog? It goes into the history of it. New Testament refers to the Scythians one time, Colossians 3:11. Even a Scythian, a barbarian, can be saved by the gospel of Jesus Christ. And a Scythian is rude or rough. It's an inhabitant of Scythia, or what is modern-day Russia. And the Scythians were regarded as the wildest of barbarians, and they were the epitome of savagery in the ancient world. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this, but just major historians, 7th century BC, this is before Ezekiel the prophet wrote his stuff and was around prophesying what God told him. Hesiod, the Greek poet, identified the Scythians as people from modern-day Russia. Again, the Greeks called them Scythians. The world called them Magogians. 1st century Jewish historian Flavius Josephus indicated the Magogians were called the Scythians by the Greeks. He connects the dots. Philo, same time period, equated Magog with southern Russia. The father of history, Herodotus, labeled the descendants of Magog by their Greek name, the Scythians. This happened in the 5th century AD. So you got 1,200 years, just from Herodotus back to Hesiod. They Magogians, Magog, Scythians, they're all the same as they saw it. It's what we consider to be the modern day Russians. So, again, that's the point with that. I don't want to dwell on that, but pretty obvious that's what's going on. And then we got this. The Russians themselves, now, of course, this won't pull up now that I want to talk about it, but this is an article. Russian defense minister, he's wanting to clone A 3,000 was referring to well-preserved remains of an ancient Scythian people. Here we go. Thank you. This is Sputnik. This is Russian. This is what they say. This is coming from the Russians themselves. Recall that Russia has conducted several expeditions in his native Republic of Tuva, which is in southern Siberia, home to a number of prehistoric burial spots. Okay, so again, Siberia over in this area. The Russians identify themselves as Scythians, and that's the point of this. I mean, let alone, I think I did comment on this at some time in the past. This happened, oh gosh, wow, I guess that was in April of this year. Wow, or last year, about a year and a half ago, almost a year ago. I'm sorry, about a year ago. They had found an ancient Scythian burial site, and they were looking to clone people, bring these great warriors back to life. And the point is that Russians identify with modern day or ancient Scythians, and modern day Russia identifies with the ancient Scythians or Magogians. So I don't think there's much of a stretch to say that this prophecy, when it talks of Gog of Magog, is talking about a leader from what is modern day Russia leading the charge. Pretty straightforward in my mind. So what's Russia done this week? Well, they've had a very busy week. This is from Axios. Most of Ukraine's government sites back online after massive cyber attacks. So this happened earlier in the week. 90% of Ukrainian government websites were knocked offline Friday. Unidentified origins were functioning again. The cyber attack came less than a day after key security talks failed to ease tensions between the United States, Europe, and Russia. Russia has amassed more than 100,000 troops on the border with Ukraine. I think that's a conservative number. We're going to get into that in a little bit. It's more. And it says Ukrainian. All your personal data was uploaded to the public network. All data on the computer is destroyed. It's impossible to restore it. All information about you has become public. Be afraid, expect the worst. This is for your past, present, and future. And this was the Ukrainian government. As a result of the massive cyber attack, the websites of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and a number of other government agencies are temporarily down. And this is from a foreign ministry person from the Ukraine, reached out via Twitter. They're working on it. They think they've got it restored. But most people seem to think that this came from Russia. So cyber attacks on Ukraine, which leads us to Russia's military districts. We're going to take a look at Russia and military movement. Now, the big picture, what I want to talk about is information coming out from multiple sources, and we're going to hit all of those as we go through this post. Russia is moving massive amounts of military via train from the eastern military district to the western military district. And why in the world would you move all kinds of armaments and the expense to move train load after train load after train load from east to west unless you have one thing in mind? And they're loading up over here in Ukraine, and we're gonna talk about that. But the big picture, this is the Russian military is divided into 5 districts. Train loads of all kinds of equipment and troops are coming from the east and moving to the west. That's what we're going to talk about. Next tweet is from Stephen Bernard. Stephen Bernard from Financial Times. He is the guy that put this chart together for financial. I believe it's Financial Times. Yes. Well, I'm not sure about this, but he's the one that put this chart together. That's the point I want to make, and that he posted it here on Twitter. And he's taken a look at the buildup of Russian forces near the borders of Ukraine. And this takes a look at how serious Putin is about launching a major Ukraine offensive. He gives thanks to the people for supplying information on Russian troops data and at Planet for the satellite imagery. But I guess this is at Financial Times, yeah, ft.com. Stephen Bernard is the gentleman responsible for the chart. Build up of Russian forces near the borders of Ukraine. Gives you an idea number of troops pending the size of the circle. But you can see that things are all around Russia's. Russia is surrounding the Ukraine. So you got down here in the Crimean Peninsula, we have troop movement. They have naval forces, troops in the, what would be the southeast of Ukraine, massive amounts of troops. You also have troops stationed not too far, a couple hundred, maybe 200 to 400 kilometers further to the east. Also, don't forget, Belarus is very friendly with Russia. And a lot of people see the leader of Belarus as kind of being good cop, bad cop. He's the bad cop. Putin plays the good cop. And he will say things and make movements and be provocative. That's not included in this chart, but I've heard and seen many news sources also talking about the number of troops that are in Belarus and on the northern border in the northwest section of Ukraine as well. Also, don't forget Moldova was an old Soviet republic, so they probably got some troops in there. I do know they have some troops in there from anecdotal conversations I've had with some people who are from the Ukraine and have moved to the United States. I happen to know a few people, and they've told me that there are Russian troops in Moldova. I don't think they have anything to hide from me. I'll take them at their words. But this gives you some sort of idea. The Ukraine is pretty much surrounded on all fronts with the exception of Poland over here in the far west, in the far west border. Is about the only place Russia doesn't have troops in and around Ukraine. So there's that. This is Russian. This is a Russian source, and I think this is vital to understand. This is from Conflict Intelligence Team. They're Russian. Okay, so this isn't conspiracy tweet. This isn't conspiracy news source. This is from the Russians themselves. In the past week, we and other researchers have noticed videos on social media showing military vehicles on trains in Russia's Far East moving west. So you get an idea. Trucks, tanks, IFVs, and MLRs can be seen on flatbed rail cars. Eyewitnesses report several trains per week or even per day moving from east to west. I will also say this in prepping for this post, I saw that Russia is shutting down TikTok accounts of Russian military troops because apparently those folks are showing, hey, we're going west, and they're coming from the Eastern Military District. As we talked about earlier, I guess it would be this one here. TikTok being shut down by certain troops from this part of the country moving to the west because it's like, hey, you're putting out too much information. You guys need to be quiet. But here are some pictures of some of the troops. There are plenty of videos showing just flatbed car after flatbed car, and they're all loaded. And some of these trains are miles long. And it's just tank after tank after tank and truck after truck and missile battery after missile battery. It is what it is. But again, this is a Russian source. This isn't something, trying to drum up some false flag. I know we're hearing that nonsense coming out of the Biden administration, but the Russians are telling you and showing you we are moving stuff to the west. And here's some of the video. BMP Infantry. This is News All the Time is the source. Vehicles from Russia's Eastern Military District have arrived in, I'm not even going to try it, near Ukraine today. And this is Diana on TikTok. Now, she's not a Russian soldier, but she's got a video here of close to, I don't know. I've seen some of these lasting 3 to 5 minutes. This is a shorter one. But it's just, here's an example of it. See it with your own two eyes, and a lot of this stuff has been verified with GPS. And I've seen it from enough different sources. It seems to be pretty credible. And we're going to confirm that as best as we can here in the next couple of posts. I'll let this run through for the next 14 seconds so you guys can get a feel, and you're like, oh, hey dude, this is the same thing over and over. It's just a bunch of military equipment on a train, but you get the idea. Here it comes. And this is also news about Iran, Middle East, Africa. Posting news. This is this is about Iran, but I've seen this as well. Russia is moving Iskander missile systems from at least 2 brigades of the Eastern Military District to the west. The Russian missile systems are being deployed to the Ukrainian border. I've heard from 4. I've seen 2 pretty consistently. And this little fella right here is capable of having tactical nuclear weapons, and they can fire them off these trucks. I think that, well, I'm going to date myself. You guys remember the movie Spies Like Us? That's what it looks like. Oh, funny, not funny. All the while, all this stuff is moving from east to west. This comes out of RT.com. This is Russian press, okay? And this is classic. Hey, the peacekeeping units are continuing to withdraw from Kazakhstan. No need to worry about us. I mean, if anything, you could say, well, these troops could come from Kazakhstan and just go back to where they were, close to the Ukraine. So we've got these folks withdrawing from a successful peacekeeping mission in Kazakhstan. They've quelled the violence, and now we're looking to go back home now that order has been restored in Kazakhstan. And, oh, by the way, we are moving pile upon pile of military equipment. And so the question, I'm going to pose, are we watching? I will turn you around, starting with verse 4, Ezekiel 38, verse 4. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with all your army, your horses, your horsemen in full armor, and a great company armed with shields and bucklers, all brandishing their swords. Now, I know this is not, they are not on Israel's doorstep. I get that. But we are bringing all kinds of military equipment from Siberia back to the west. And that stuff is going to be lined up all around this area. And they have access. They can move through here, move through Georgia, Turkey. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen in Ukraine. And again, this has to ultimately do with the distribution, the selling of oil and natural gas to Western Europe. And there are 2 things that stand in the way of Russia, Putin, from having a monopoly on the oil and gas market to completely control Europe. And it's the Ukraine and it's Israel. Israel's got crazy amounts of natural gas reserves off its coast in the Tamar and Leviathan gas fields. And they're going to want to move pipeline and distribute this stuff through Cyprus, build a pipeline, have it, which its hub is in this place called Thessaloniki, excuse me. We know that from 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Same town, distribute this on over to Italy, and from there they can get it to the rest of Western Europe. So it's fascinating to watch this stuff happen, and to think all these towns, all these places that were, we're talking about stuff that was written 2,700 years ago, clearly, I think we're seeing it. We're seeing the dominoes being set into place. And again, wondering out loud, are we watching that hook being put in Gog's jaw to bring all of his equipment, all of his troops, him and many nations? We know from this recent little peacekeeping mission in Kazakhstan, uh, Georgia was involved, Belarus was involved, Russia was involved. I believe it was uh, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, or Tajikistan, as well as Kazakhstan were involved. There were 6 countries involved. And we also know from the prophecy, Iran's going to help, Turkey's going to help, Libya, and Sudan, Ethiopia. Interesting stuff. Big shout out. And if you guys really want to follow this stuff, please, please, please check out Czekmate on ValorTube.com. You want to know what's going on from a geopolitical standpoint. This guy knows the area, knows it well. Highly recommend following him. You're going to know stuff. I mean, this guy studies this part of the world. He is locked in and taking place, or he is watching what's taking place in this part of the world. And lastly, we are going to shift all the way out here. If I can find it. There it is. There's Tonga. So we are off the. Whoops. Let's get a marker on Tonga so you guys can get a lay of the land where Tonga is located. And this is just amazing. You see how far this is from everything. Massive underwater. And I lost it. Doggone it. Massive underwater explosion volcano took place. I think it was yesterday. I'm going to do this in real time. This is on the fly editing here. With Tonga volcano. Yeah, here we go. This is amazing. And the Daily Mail puts up some great articles, great videos. And I think this thing was so powerful, it was close to like a 7.4 earthquake. That's how big of a volcanic eruption this was. And it took place underground. But here's water. Well, here's stuff from on Twitter. But you can see some water coming in. Tsunami smashes beaches. This is in Tonga. I'm just going to scroll down just to give you guys a flavor of this. More tsunami hitting Tonga. And then you got some video of this. This is keep in mind, this took place underwater. And this is what showed up on satellite. Tonga Meteorological Services compliments government of Tonga. This is cool. Watch this thing explode. Unbelievable. Let's see if we can find. And this was the day before. This wasn't even the one that had an eruption the day before the big one went underground. Okay, so this is this the one? No, it's not. But the point I wanted to make with this is there was like a tsunami alert for the whole western shore of the United States, and we had consistent 4-foot waves hit the coast of the United States. And I mean, look how far that is. I mean, that is literally halfway around the world. Water travels across. leaves 4-foot waves coming in. And then, of course, anything along through here. Japan had some tidal waves. Australia did. New Zealand. Amazing to see what that can cause just from one underwater explosion, volcanic explosion, registering 7.4 on the Richter scale. So, but to go back to tonight's main story, this week's main story, keep your eyes on Russia. They got all kinds of troop movement, all types of military hardware coming from east to west, headed to the Ukrainian border. And you don't move that much stuff unless you're serious. It's going to be pretty surreal. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how this goes down with the Ukraine. We ultimately know where this is headed. They're going to bring their party south into the Middle East. And they're going to go after Israel for economic reasons. That's what Ezekiel said. I trust it's going to happen. It's just a matter of how and when. So, could be watching prophecy unfolding before our very eyes. Interesting times. Appreciate you guys spending the time. And if you have any updates, keep you posted. If not, catch you next week on This Week in Prophecy. Thanks a lot. Bye.